In the fifth stage of our journey, we find an interesting paradox. We find that our path leads us into the awareness of what seems to be opposites. We have struggled, perhaps, or sometimes it's been easy if there's been many successes in our lives, perhaps until this time. And yet, we enter a time where the ability to discern becomes mandatory. We have to be willing to move into witnessing the paradoxes of our life without judgment. We have to begin to observe and find and witness both and. So in the first chapter of Genesis, we find a reference on the fifth day of creation to the birds of the sky. St. Francis represents that, the saint of the Franciscan tradition, where the birds came and stayed with him. And so we find those beings of light in our lives. We recognize them, and they recognize us. Often we also find in our lives the paradoxes. We find what in that same day of creation, in the ancient tradition of that scripture, is called the great sea monsters. That in ancient scripture, in that first chapter of Genesis, includes the mention in one of the translations of the great sea monsters. This is a time in your life where often there will be those moments of great sea monsters that really rock your boat. They may actually capsize your boat. You may feel at times like you're drowning. Or you may find a need to protect yourself. You'll notice this fish line that's strung across. It's because the herons seemed to find a particular attraction to diving for the koi fish, the example in these gardens of the symbol of the great sea monsters. In order to be able to see the beauty of the great sea monsters in your life, it requires you to go higher. You cannot see them from the level on which you are standing. The time comes for us to deal with what the paradoxes look like in our lives. Sometimes we don't want to. We'd rather just not. And yet, if we are willing to go higher and to see it from a different perspective, to have another perception, we will be able, perhaps, to see the beauty. And so we make the decision, even though sometimes it seems difficult, to go higher. And we take the steps to do that. And we find the place from which we can view the great sea monsters from a perspective that is higher than the one from where we previously stood. Only when we stand higher, only when we're willing to see from a place that is beyond where we previously stood, can we see the beauty of the great sea monsters in our life. Can we see them as we see these amazing koi fish as symbols in a journey leading us to the flowering of consciousness, opening us into new levels of awareness, opening us into new birth. This is the gift of the great sea monsters. This is the gift of seeing from a higher perspective. This is the gift that moves beyond judgment, that moves beyond blame. This is the gift that knows love without an opposite.